When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Hi, I'm Edward Payson, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Before we get started, folks, we also wanted to let everybody know that is listening to this interview. It is being recorded on the D&D Fitness Apparel line. D&D Fitness Apparel is a Memphis-based comedy and clothing startup brand that is helping you reclaim the quality gym wear that you want to have on, but also does all the talking for you because you want to be comfortable while you are there to
Pump you up!
Feel free to visit them at dndfitapparel.com. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest certainly had dreams and aspirations since he was a little boy, knowing he wanted to direct films. So eventually he packed up everything and moved to California, 20 years old, to attend Columbia College, Hollywood. He is now a director, writer, and producer, with projects under his belt, such as Morbid, a love story, the main project we're going to talk about today, In Search of All-American Massacre, the Lost Texas Chainsaw Film, the Cohasset Snuff Film, and others. So let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Edward Payson.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
So, Mr. Edward Payson,
Yes.
how are you, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Right on. And I want to give credit for this to Mr. Aaron over at A&B Horror Movies. So thank you, sir. And appreciate the recommendations when they come over. So, seems like you got a very interesting filmography, I guess we'll call it. But, and the one I wasn't familiar with, but as soon as I saw, I popped in the retro, talking about retro games in the modern era. But why don't we start with the All-American Massacre? And, it's funny, and I didn't realize this, or excuse me, when I say that, the title is In Search of the All-American Massacre, the Lost Texas Chainsaw Film. So folks know exactly what in the hell I'm talking about. Be nice once in a while. But what do you think this story is? Because obviously things float around on this interweb thing. But why do you think the film was never released? And what is the story? But also, do you think it'll ever see the light of day?
Sure, yeah. Well, we made the documentary kind of going through the different theories as to why the film wasn't released. My personal theory is that the film wasn't released due to a multitude of different things. But the main theory is that it didn't get done because the idea was bigger than the actual budget. And it just kept growing from the actual first, pitch of the idea, a small, short, 10-minute, reel to showcase Tony, who's Tobe Hooper's son's kind of skills as a special effects person, to a full-blown feature film. And as the years went on and on and on, it just became apparent that, this undertaking was something that was going to be too big for the budget that they had and the people that they had involved that were all involved in other things that were taking them away from the project. And Tony himself was, kind of the only person that was fully involved in this project, trying to keep it going. And as people got older, moved away, moved on to bigger, not necessarily bigger things, but to other things.
You're talking so there's clarity, like the special effects folks, and I believe Bill Moseley was involved, and there was like you said, it was Tobe Hooper's son that took this on and created this project. So there was some players, quote unquote, involved here. So just so people know what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So it is, and at the end of the day, I guess if we considered a fan film, it did come out way before the term fan film was a thing. And what kind of separates it from the typical fan film is Bill Moseley did reprise his role as Chop Top, but because of legal issues and stuff like that, they changed his name to Bloody Bobby, and a few other characters that would reprise their role as Texas Chainsaw Massacre characters would change their names for legal issues, because like I said, fan films were not a thing, and when you mess with IP, people got really mad back in the day. YouTube wasn't a thing yet, so there wasn't a fan film every day that was coming out, and people got really mad. And around the same time, the rights were sold from Tobe Hooper, and there was another film coming out, and that ended up becoming the Texas Chainsaw 3, and ended up then becoming the new generation. And there was some muddy waters that were happening with what was happening with the franchise. So
And the IP and all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah, and obviously it's still happening to this day. Like there's a bidding war that's about to happen between like A24 and Jordan Peele and Netflix with the rights to Texas Chainsaw coming up. If it's not happening, I think it's happening like this week or something like that, to see who's going to have the rights to the next movie. So it's still like an ongoing thing to this day, something that was happening over 20 years ago. But back to what I was saying. These people that were working on the film, they weren't just like students. They weren't just like people that were just passionate about the project. They were people that were working on big things. Some of these people had worked on like Mortal Kombat, working on the Goro puppet, for instance, that was used in the Mortal Kombat movie. Tony, Toby's son himself, had worked on like Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, doing special effects. They had people that had worked on like the who's who list of like B horror movies in the 90s. So these were a lot of people that were always working on different things. So just kind of to hold them to this no budget or low budget movie was a lot to ask. And with Tony being the only person kind of there to keep working on it and kind of get these people together, you could see how it was hard to kind of keep the project afloat for so many years.
Now, I'm curious to know, because I found it interesting, that even the most hardcore Texas Chainsaw fans weren't familiar with this project. So I know you had learned of this because of the early days of the internet. You were in California at the time, etc. When do you think people start becoming aware of this particular project?
I honestly don't think a lot of people still are aware of it. That's kind of why we made the documentary as well. I know, like, even when doing research for this project, people I know that have like giant like Texas Chainsaw sleeves and full back tattoos of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, people that would call themselves like lifelong fans and stuff, even people that were in Texas Chainsaw Massacre themselves. I'm friends with quite a few people that were in the movies themselves, had no idea that this movie existed. So that's kind of the reason why we decided to make this, because I think it's a cool story. And then when you get it, like, there's a whole sub story as well. When it comes, some of the footage kind of for All American Massacre, and then ended up in a storage locker that was then bought by the highest bidder on eBay like several years later. And there's like pictures and video that exists that end up showing up in like 2020 online. So that we go through all this kind of stuff that happened in the documentary itself.
So with having the documentary out, etc., do you think it will eventually be able to see the light of day to people going, hey, you know what? We would like to see a finished product of this. Because like you said, there was footage and film and different storage units and telling that whole story. But do you think we can find one home for all the stuff that was done and try to get things finished?
I would hope so. Someone had told me that there was some movement on the All American Massacre Twitter after the movie had come out. I know that some more footage, I guess, or some stuff for All American Massacre was released on eBay. It was sold for a lot of money sometime in the last year, I believe. I think it was like a full script had sold and some more screenshots or something like that. So there is a lot of interest still. So I'm hoping, one way or another, either it leaks or Tony finishes it, or somehow it comes out, because there are fans, hardcore fans like me and other people that still do want to see it, even if it is, I feel like even if it is not the greatest movie at this point, I feel like people still want to see it just because of who's in it, who's involved, and I still think it'll be loved, even if it is not the best thing, best product, and doesn't stand the test of time at this point, just for the nostalgic purposes at this point.
Exactly. So you are a cat that grew up in Manchester, Derry region of New Hampshire. And what was
Right.
it about growing up as a kid that you realized I want to direct films?
Yeah, so my dad was a gunsmith, and he basically like we didn't really connect on much besides like football and horror films, and kind of he my dad and my mom got divorced when I was really young, and most of the time we saw him was just on every other weekend, and our kind of ritual was in the daytime we'd watch football, and then at night we'd watch a horror film, and we'd usually immediately get picked up, go to either a mom and pop video store or go to like a Blockbuster or Video Update, which was like our local chain, and we'd rent a horror film. And usually our stepmom would not approve of the horror films. We were 6 and 5 years old, my brother and I, when my dad got, or probably a little older. I think we were 7 and 6. And we had a sister who was like 4 years older than us, maybe 5 years older than us. And she was still not allowed to watch like R-rated movies and stuff like that. My stepmom's. So like when we would go over, my dad would let us watch horror movies, but we'd have to watch them in the basement with my dad while he was making bullets and stuff like that. So he introduced me to the classics, the Night of the Living Deads, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, stuff like that. And then we had a babysitter around the same time who would come over, this old lady in her 50s, Patricia Bodwell, who her daughter owned like a mom and pop video store, and she'd bring over all the reject tapes that they didn't want to sell in the store, but they were all like the promotional copies, and they were all the ones that they didn't want to sell in the store. So at the bottom it said not for resale, and she brought them over and just let us have them. And they were all like the movies, the really, really schlock horror movies that nobody wanted. And that's how I kind of got the education on those low budget horror films. So immediately at that young age, I was watching these like R-rated films I probably shouldn't be watching. And sometimes they weren't even horror movies. Sometimes they were like B-level, like softcore porn that I probably shouldn't be watching either. That level. And so from then on, like after seeing, the Rumpelstiltskins and Pumpkinheads and Pumpkinhead 2s and all those kinds of movies, I eventually got into, wanting to learn how the special effects worked. And, I didn't know there was an outlet for doing this kind of stuff. I knew I was interested in it. And in high school, there was a cool screenwriting program that we had. So at first I thought I just wanted to be a screenwriter, but then they also opened up a video creation class. And from the video creation class, I kind of, hit the ground running and decided I wanted to be a director, and, the rest is history.
So, because you and me are about the same age, you're about a year and a half, 2 years younger than me, according to the interweb. And so the internet was kind of in its early stages, let's say, when we were in high school and such. And so it's not like it is today when you can look up secondary schools, all that fun stuff. Or it wasn't as advanced as it is today, I should say. So where did the discovery of Columbia College of Hollywood come in?
So Columbia happened by accident, and it was a lot of trial and error first. So in high school, I just was not interested in everything that was being taught. Like literally nothing interested me except for my media classes. I had some teachers daily that I'm still friends with to this day. Like they literally were my mentors, screenwriting teachers and media teachers there. And honestly, some of the best like classes that you could ask for in a high school, because we had a full green screen that you could use. We had full like cameras that you could use, editing equipment and stuff like that. There was a full channel. So I moved from Derry, New Hampshire, more year, Waltham, Massachusetts, to live with my aunt for a little while. And basically in that time when I went to Waltham High, that's when I started this class. And yeah, it was like a whole new world was opened up to me, because when I started these media classes, like the Waltham had their own channel that was on Real TV that we pretty much had like full run to do whatever we want. There was own, we could make our own, skit shows, and it would all go on the local access channel. So we did that, and I ended up, the reason why I went to Waltham was because they had a better idea of like state schools. I mentioned that I wasn't really interested in any of the stuff that was being taught. Found out later that I probably have like severe ADHD, and I just couldn't even like feign interest in things that I was not interested in. Like, I was an intelligent kid, and I could literally study things for like an hour before a test and still get like a B on the test for most things. But I just was not interested in any of it. And I couldn't, like I said, pretend to be interested in things that were not interesting to me. So the idea of going to like, or trying to go to these colleges that weren't media based was just like not interesting to me. So when the college fairs came around, I would like pretend to go to just these different booths and just grab, flyers, but really about like getting stuff to look like I was doing something, but I was not actually even grabbing any information for anything. I had no plan or anything like that. The idea was just to go to a state school that had a media program at that point. So I ended up going to Bridgewater State College, and found out very quickly the media program there was not even as good as the one that I had in my high school. Their idea of a media program that you were paying $6,000 for a semester was, here's a $70 camera from Best Buy, go film stuff, and 3,000 students can now share 4 editing suites, and we'll see you at the end of the semester. We're not going to teach you how to use real microphones like that you would use, and we're not going to teach you the editing program. You're just going to have access to this stuff, and that's going to be your media class. Good. So I then, half of being in this school, realized if I was serious doing this, I couldn't just stay in Massachusetts or New England. I had to either go to New York or Los Angeles, and I picked Los Angeles. And honestly, how I picked Columbia College Hollywood is I was on YouTube one day, and one of the ads on the side of the page showed Columbia College Hollywood. And I clicked through and saw that they had sets that you could actually use in the school, like just as a student. So they had equipment that you could use. They had sets that you could use. So like the whole school pretty much could be used like as standing sets, like down to like the bathrooms. Each of the bathrooms in the school was a different set. So they had like one bathroom in the school was a truck stop. Another one was like a dance studio. And then they had like other sets, like they had like a pool, like a billiard hall with like a pool table and stuff like that. So you could shoot a bar scene. And then they had like a old New England house. So just as like right up my alley, it's like built for people that wanted to shoot and make movies. So sight unseen, and without even visiting the school, we put the down payments down, and I, next semester went out to Hollywood and went to this 300 kid film school, and that's how we picked out.
Nice. So obviously, and I want to pay respect to him, but during this time, early in school and stuff, that was about the same time you lost your father, correct?
Yeah. So I there. September of 2007, and I ended up losing my father in December of 2008. So not very long after.
So, and I apologize and sorry to hear that even to this day, but should we give your father full credit for the love of horror and what you're doing now?
I think so. Yeah, my dad is definitely, I would say 75% for the love of horror. Because like I said, he introduced me to all like the stuff that you'd see in like the theaters. And then like the schlock horror, I would definitely give to that babysitter, Patricia Bodwell, because she introduced me to all those schlock horror VHSs that would come from the mom and pop stores.
Right on. So, obviously, I heard listening to Aaron's episode with you early this afternoon that you had a real interest in the I'm trying to think of how this is called, so forgive me, but because I'm thinking of the Cohasset Snuff Film.
Mm-hmm.
So found footage is the word I'm looking for. Excuse me. So would you say that's your favorite genre, the found footage type of horror?
I would say it's definitely my favorite genre of horror film. I think it's the only genre of horror film where I've ever felt actually scared watching it. It's the only one where I really don't know what's going to happen. And the only one that really there is no rules. And there is, you just don't know, unless you're watching like one that's like a studio found footage film, I feel like really know how those are going to happen, and they kind of stick to the rules. But like if you're watching a found footage film that's kind of low budget and stuff like that, there really are no rules. Like you can watch one and they could kill a baby, in front of you or something like that. Or
those rules you talk about, everything's,
Yeah. You don't know how far they're going to push the envelope. And I think that kind of thing is, and you don't know if it's going to go paranormal. You don't know. You just don't know with found footage. And I love that.
So with the Cohasset Snuff Film, what was the inspiration? And like I said, when I was listening to the episode with Aaron, it seems like there was a lot of, I wouldn't say drama, but just like, wow, we actually got a good little project here, and we did it for pennies on the dollar, but this turned out great. But yet there was issues with distributing DVDs and just all kinds of stuff, which you can find streaming now on different sites. But what was the actual story with it? Was it the distributor went under, or what happened there?
Yeah, so a few different things. So I think around the time there wasn't much to streaming at the moment. You basically, if you didn't get one of the big sites like the Amazon, the Netflixes or one of those, like if you didn't get one of the big deals with them, you had to stick to like the Amazon Prime. But with Amazon Prime at the time, they only had certain things that they would let on there, and they were very strict on what they would let on there. And for a little time, we did have it in like Redbox, for instance, and Redbox supposedly, and mind you, this is all through the distributor. Supposedly, like they said that we made like $700 or $800 in a month on Redbox, but through this distributor, and I will use their name because it's really messed up. Like what they did, they were called R Squared, and they're no longer around. But basically, it was really messed up what they did because they were one of those companies, and a lot of companies will do this to new filmmakers. What they'll do is they will go on like IMDb and they will search out new films that are coming out. They'll email, or if there's like news that comes out, or they'll go to festivals, etc., and see that new films will come out. They'll act like they're very excited about your film and send emails like they're very interested in your film, and they're so interested they'll send you a bunch of emails about what they can promise and Like they're really, really interested, and they can make you all this money, etc. And then
promise you the world.
And even the contracts look good. But the thing that you don't really bank on is the fact that they're not as gung-ho about doing their job as you are. These contracts really gauge on the fact that they're actually going to promote, that they're actually going to actually do just anything. So if they just sit back and do nothing, then you're not going to make any money. So essentially what happens is they make all the money and you make nothing. And there's really nothing legally that you can do about it, because what these companies will do is they'll find these young filmmakers, and right before you're about to make money, they'll find something to spend money on, but there's no way to prove that they're actually spending the money unless you pay to have them audited or something like that, which no young filmmaker is able to do.
Yeah.
And basically you'll see that you're about to make money. Like so many times we're at less than $100 away from like making money. And then all of a sudden there's some giant expense. I think like one of the things they did that was like a red flag that we even called them out on, but then they charged us anyway, was like we had a poster for the film, right? And they took the poster and they changed the like opacity on the poster. And mind you, the person who made the poster has literally made posters for like Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that. Made like for professional people, like used to work for like Acclaim and like people like that, like doing marketing for huge companies. This person who like was doing the fixing of the poster has not worked for like any company to note. They changed the opacity of the poster, and they took his custom lettering that he did from scratch and put like the most basic lettering that was like not even custom lettering, that they didn't even probably have like the right to use, that they didn't even have like the licensing for, and they changed it. Like literally something that probably took them less than a half hour. And then they tried to charge $11,000 for poster work, saying that they made custom artwork for us in like the billing and stuff. So like just little things like that like people would think was just like, you know, what these people charge, like if they weren't called out on it. So just little things like that. Another thing they did is like after their whole deal was over, like we thought the nightmare was over, it was like several years before we could get the movie taken down from streaming sites. It was still getting money from these streaming sites, but it wasn't going to us. We had not seen a single dime, and it was on all these streaming sites. And we had to literally send like a cease and desist to have it taken down from all these sites because they just did not get it taken down when their deal was up. Like all this really shady stuff. We never saw a dime at all in the entire time, even though there was DVD sales, even though like whole boxes and boxes of DVD sales went to huge companies throughout the US, throughout like other countries. So yeah. And I should have known too, because the guy had no idea what a found footage film was when I talked to him after the deal was signed, even though he pretended to begin with. He was like, oh yeah, the lighting was kind of bad in this scene and stuff. It's like, dude, it's a found footage film. What are you talking about? Like the lighting?
There's certain things that are done certain ways for a reason.
Yeah. The last thing I should say is once you sign the contract, they no longer answer your emails at all. The only way you can get them to even respond to you is by calling them like 100 times, them happening to answer your email. Like I would have to call like using like *69 or whatever the one to like block the number. Mm-hmm. That's the only way they would actually answer the calls after you actually sign the contract. It's just like this most predatory, messed up thing ever. And now, the company is defunct. So,
well, the contract's up and the company is defunct. So I guess my question would be, who has the rights to the project?
So I have the rights now to Cohasset Snuff Film, and then I think you had a second part of that question. So the question was, where did the inspiration for the project come from? So originally I wanted to do a feature film for my thesis project in college, and the one I wanted to do kind of fell apart, and I was looking for something to do after college that was a thesis film, that was a feature film. And I went on Craigslist, and a script came across my desk for something called Mind of a Serial Killer, Richard Bates, from someone named Darnell Taylor, who's now a good friend of mine. And it was a great story, but it needed some work. So I rewrote it, and I worked with him to rewrite this. And basically, like, the idea was there, but yeah, I made it like more of a documentary style, and rewrote kind of the characters and stuff like that, made it take place in Massachusetts and a few other things like that, added a few characters, and made it the Cohasset Snuff Film. And that's kind of where the idea came from. And it was like a 3-year process of making it into the Cohasset Snuff Film, from Mind of a Serial Killer, Richard Bates, which he actually released the original script in novel form as well. And I believe it is available on Amazon as Mind of a Serial Killer, Richard Bates.
Nice. So is it streaming again under your leadership officially, or?
Yes, it is. It is. We went through Film Hub, and Film Hub has it now on Found TV. It's streaming on Apple TV and a bunch of like smaller networks right now.
Nice. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I mentioned it earlier, was rarity retro video game collecting in the modern era. Are you a gamer?
Yes. More these days, I'm more of a collector than a gamer, but yes, I would consider myself a gamer.
So where did the idea for this documentary come from?
So I've been a collector my entire life. And
if you come across any regular Nintendo stuff, hit me up.
Yeah, I collect Nintendo games too. Not as much as Sega Genesis. I'm a giant Sega Genesis collector. Trying to collect the whole set, but I do have over 100 regular Nintendo games as well. But yeah, so during the pandemic, I was stuck in my house. I still lived in Los Angeles at the time, and essentially, me and my friend Adam were looking for ideas to do something, because literally everything was closed. So the idea was to shoot something, and we only had access to really whoever would let us in their house, because nothing was open. So really, people were like risking their lives to like help, let us shoot their collections and stuff in their house. And then other people were letting remote film crews in their house to let them shoot the collection. And we were working with remote crews and stuff. So it started off as a really small project. We really were only going to do like 4 or 5 interviews, but then it just kind of grew from there. And honestly, like, I've just, like I said, just been a collector my entire life. And I never had seen like a documentary about the idea of collections and collecting when it came to video games. I've seen things about gaming and gaming culture, but not specifically about collecting. So I want to make one about collecting.
Right on. So where can people find your stuff, whether it be any of the documentaries, your short films, your regular feature films, everything you've produced, which share the links, obviously. Where is the best central location people can find all things Edward Payson?
So most of the stuff between like 3 sites. So most of the stuff you can either find on Amazon, on YouTube, or on Tubi. Some stuff you can find on Plex, but those are like the big 4. And then like Found TV for the Cohasset Snuff Film and I would just recommend Found TV overall if you really like found footage films, because they really are doing great stuff when it comes to found footage. And they're just curating just found footage films and making new found footage films for people who just love them, like myself. So,
Right on. Well, how about you personally? Are you on social media much, and how can people find you that way if they want to reach out and chat?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Or I'm not on Twitter. I don't know why I said that. I'm not on Twitter. I'm on I'm on Instagram under an Anti-Hero Production with underscores with between each word. And then I am on what else am I on? I am on Facebook. If you just look up Edward Payson, and let me look up my socials here, because I actually don't know what my TikTok is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have an Anti-Hero Production. An Anti-Hero 1 is my TikTok.
Right on. And you know what? Before I pull this off, because I like to ask this as a independent artist, let's say, filmmaker, what do you think of the recent boom of independent projects? Obviously, a lot of people talk Terrifier, starting from this to now becoming what the franchise has become. So what do you think? What do you think of that kind of thing? But does it give you hope that, hey, you know what, I have a shot too to create something to make that big boom?
I think it's incredible. We had something not that big, but basically something like that happened with our film Rarity recently, where on YouTube we jumped from something around like 400,000 views to 25 million views between 2023 and the end of 2024. And yeah, that was just like exponential for, everybody involved, our careers and stuff, and obviously for money and revenue and stuff. I think it's great. I think it's only going to get better and easier with AI. I know a lot of people like to put down AI. I think it's something that, if used as a tool, is going to level the playing field for the working director. For my films right now, I've seen just huge improvements in like what I'm able to do with correcting sound and things like that. As far as like my documentaries, if I get really bad sound quality or something like that, being able to fix that on like a drop of a dime. With music, being able to fix music and stuff like that. If there's any kind of like problems with music in the background of a documentary, or if there's someone talking and a car drives by, for man in the field type of documentary interviews. I think it's just going to get easier and easier for, if someone's trying to make something, they're going to be able to make it.
Right on. Edward, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
Hey folks, looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
Hi, this is Amanda Wist, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.